This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have so much fun talking with my guest because we're going to be talking a lot about that thing that's on the wall behind him. And you're thinking, what the heck? A bicycle? No, he doesn't make bicycles. As far as I know, he doesn't ride them in major races. Might ride it for, but no. So we're going to be talking about a bicycle and how it can be an absolutely critical part of your business. So please join me in welcoming Rich Allen to our program today. Welcome, Rich.
Thanks, Deb. So nice to be with you. Thanks.
Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this and explain why there's a bicycle on the wall behind you. So after watching his father's family-owned business struggle to succeed, Rich Allen made it his mission to turn failure into a legacy by asking one simple question: what makes a business work? The answer? Well, it's as easy as riding a bike. A high-energy speaker, recognized author, very successful entrepreneur, and sought-after advisor to business owners, Rich has proven time and time again that his bicycle model really works. With experience in both large and small companies, including growing a small manufacturing business to well over $100 million in annual sales, Rich has helped hundreds of business owners create radically engaged teams. So again, Rich, welcome.
Thank you, Deb. So happy to be here with you.
Great. Well, you've written a great book, and it's called The Ultimate Business Tune-Up, a simple yet powerful business model that will transform the lives of small business owners. And we're going to talk about that. But, in that book, you talk about the bicycle. But let's go back just a little bit and explain to us how it is that you got where you are today.
That'd be great. I'd love to. And I love the enthusiasm you bring to the show. You're infectious. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you.
This did start for me back when I worked with my dad in his business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from near Cleveland, Ohio,
Okay.
so up north. I grew up in a very large family. I've got 11 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And so my dad was the hardest working guy I ever
Right.
knew. He was doing everything he could just to put food on the table. And at age 36, he made the boldest decision of his life. We took our used van. He did the car wrap of the 1970s, and he started his own window washing business.
Wow.
And Deb, my dad was probably the best window washer you could find. He was unbelievable, great with customers, very detail minded. He had no clue how to run a business.
Oh, and isn't it that way? We all think, ooh, we can do this, and we don't have a clue.
Right. We have a passion for a trade or a skill or an art, but nobody teaches us how to run a business.
Right.
And so I was with my dad working with him, and every day was a fire drill. Every day was pretty much a train wreck. And this just went on day after day, month after month, year after year. Finally, each one of my brothers and we left. We said, there's got to be a better life out there somewhere. One of my brothers even left to start his own window washing business, competing with dad. And so, but that continued after, I left and got a lucky break to go to college. And so I had a career that I could go chase. But meanwhile, my dad's relationship with my mom deteriorated, and my dad ended up alone, just struggling, and became an alcoholic. I mean, there were all the things that happen to you when things don't go right.
Right.
And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, what was it that I didn't know or wish I'd have known to help him just be more successful? Because he had a dream, just like every small business owner I see has a dream, right? To build a business and leave a legacy for your family.
Right.
And my dad just couldn't make that happen. And frankly, at the time, I didn't know what to do. So I just did what I could to kind of learn what I could about business and how it works. And that's how I stumbled on the bike idea.
Mhm. Right. And it is so true that, as a small business owner, especially if you are the primary breadwinner for your family, whether you've got, no kids or 11 kids, you work yourself into the ground. And it becomes everything that you do, and that's, that is one of the big problems that small business owners have is we either forget that we can have a personal life or we just think that we can't because we're continually working on that business. We're trying to, always make it successful, always be doing the next thing. And even if you're not the primary breadwinner, that, that tends to be something that happens with small business owners. And, so one of the things that you talk about in your book and we're going to jump around a little bit, but we'll come, I really want to talk about the bicycle concept, but is that, in your book, you talk about the fact that it is so important that we have a personal life, that we figure out what's important to us. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, Deb, I'm a firm believer that the reason that we're in business is so we can enjoy our life.
Right.
Right. We're not in business to simply do good in business. The business is a vehicle to help us to do things that matter more and do the things that are significant to us. So if that's spend time with your family, if that's create some wealth so you can influence a mission or some charity that you're passionate about, that's what the business is about. So we have an opportunity. Some people tend to go in and become a W-2 employee and they work for someone else.
Right.
And others say, you know what, I think I could do that better myself. And so, but what I see oftentimes is the strategy to get better in business is often to work harder. And we just think, look, if I could just work a little bit harder, listen to a few more voices, piece together some ideas, I'll make this thing work. And oftentimes we're just dragging it. We're drawing at straws, and it doesn't lead us to success.
Right. And you mentioned something that's very important is that, we've got that passion for whatever it is that we're doing, which is great. I mean, whether you're an author, whether you're a consultant, whether you're building a widget, whether you're washing windows, you've got the passion for that, but we don't know how to actually make that successful. There are classes, there are books, and one of the things that I loved about your book is you list lots of resources. But to actually sit down and learn how to have that business and make it successful, we don't do. And a big part of that is we don't have time because we're so busy. We're like that hamster on the wheel. We're continually going and continually going. And of course, the problem is that's all that's going to get done. We're just going to be that hamster on the wheel forever unless we take the steps to really step back, and especially if you have employees, and that is, the premise of your book is that you do have employees. And hopefully many of our listeners and our viewers, reach that stage where they've at least got a virtual assistant or something like that. Right. But what we want is for them to be so passionate about the business too. And it's all in laying that groundwork to make sure that that makes the business successful.
No, that's right, Deb. I think you hit it right on the head. Look, we can choose to have a business that's small, just ourselves, maybe a couple of team members, or we can do it through other people. But in the end, the way the business owner has to think is that they have to spend the majority of their time in what they call your zone of genius, right? I can tell that your zone of genius is doing what you're doing right here. And so you've got to spend the vast majority of your time doing that if you want to be successful.
Right.
We can't spend our time and our energy and our resource doing things that we aren't that good at,
right,
or that others could be better at. So we have to find a way to surround ourselves with resources, whether they're virtual or people on our team who can help us do that so we can focus on the things and the passion that we bring.
Right.
The area that matters most.
Yeah. And we talk about that on the program a lot, that, we have our area of expertise and, we have to have people help us.
Right.
Our accountants, our attorneys, our, whoever it is. I mean, I have a virtual assistant that is my producer that is absolutely fabulous.
Right.
We all have the need for someone else, even if it's just somebody to keep us organized and going. And we shouldn't be trying to learn all of those other things. It's kind of like if you're sick and you're going to the doctor, well, could you watch a YouTube video and figure out how to do, say, open heart surgery? Probably not. And so
Right.
we hire other experts. Why not have experts helping us in our own businesses?
No, that's right. Because if we don't, honestly, we don't really have a business. We just have a glorified job.
Right.
But we have a job where we're the handyman. We do
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
And
Right.
honestly, that's not a recipe for success
No.
for anyone,
No.
right? We all know that.
Right. And even if it's just you, if you are your
Right.
business, there's only so many hats that you can wear, in order for your business to be successful.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, let's talk about the bike analogy. How first did that come about? And then let's talk about the various parts of the bike.
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you how it came about. It was it was a happenstance. Actually, it was a desperation moment, I would suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had been working in large corporations for several years, but I'd been around managers and leaders all the time, and many of them, frankly, Deb, they couldn't manage their way out of a paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
I kept thinking to myself, I could do this better.
Right.
And
How'd they
I've
get
got
that
my
job?
dad. I've got my dad in my mind, and
Mhm.
I'm thinking, wow, I think I know this, and
Mhm.
I've been studying, and I have read a lot of books, and I
Mhm.
follow a lot of key leaders. Um, but so one day I was working for a corporation. My boss walked into my office, and he had a key in his hand, and we had just acquired a small manufacturing firm
Mm.
based in Minnesota.
Mhm.
And he walked in, he said, Rich, this one's yours. You get to go run it. And it was
Wow.
like, hallelujah, my
Yeah.
dream come true,
Uh-huh.
right? It was a beautiful day, other
Uh-huh.
than having to go home and tell my wife we're moving to Minnesota, right?
Mhm.
She was game. She was up for the journey. So we
Mhm.
did. We moved to Minnesota. I walked into the business, and it was doing about 30 million in revenue, and it
Mhm.
had maybe 220 people.
Mhm.
We were manufacturing doors.
Hmm.
And as I walked in, I realized I didn't have a clue what I was going to do
Mhm.
to make the business work. In
Mhm.
fact, as I walked around and met people, I realized that most of the people were there simply for a paycheck.
Right.
They were just there
Mhm.
just simply because they could get paid a wage,
Mhm.
cash their check on Friday, go enjoy the weekend, and
Mhm.
maybe drag themselves back to work on Monday.
Mhm.
And so I was trying to think. For weeks, I walked around the factory thinking, how can I get the people on the team to really understand
Mhm.
what we're trying to do here
Right.
and what we want to accomplish.
Mhm.
And Deb, my idea came to me where all great ideas happen, right? In the shower.
The shower.
In the
Mhm.
shower one morning, I had this idea, and I got out and called my admin assistant and said, schedule a meeting. I know what we're going to do. And
Mhm.
so we did. A couple days later, we cleared out a part of the warehouse, brought both first and second shift
Mm.
folks in together.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I brought this bike, the one that hangs on my wall. I
Uh-huh.
brought this one in. It was the one I was riding at the time, nearly 22 years ago. And I put it up on a table at the front of the room, and I got everybody's attention, and I said, what's this? And they all looked at me like I had lost my mind. They
A
said,
bike.
who is the nutcase they sent us this
Uh-huh.
time?
Mhm.
And, a couple guys in the back shouted, stolen property.
Okay.
And I thought, no, it's my bike. I didn't
Mhm.
steal it. But
Mhm.
I said, this isn't a bike.
Mhm.
This is our business. And if we could understand how our business was like this bike,
Mhm.
we could tune up our bike,
Mhm.
tune up our business, and make it go really fast.
Mhm.
And frankly, that's what we did.
Mhm.
So for the next 7 years, we used the bike as a metaphor for a business.
Right.
It was a way for the first time when I walked through all the components and how it all worked together. It was the first time that most factory workers really comprehended how a business truly
Right.
worked.
Right.
And so
Because
they
they
all
had their area that they focused on.
Right. And they can, and everybody knows how a bike works.
Mhm.
So it's not a mystery, but
Right.
sometimes we make business too complicated.
Mhm.
And we don't relate it to the people that we want, that we need to get engaged most
Mhm.
importantly,
Mhm.
so that we don't have to do all the work,
Right.
right? As a business owner, that's the,
Mhm.
I think that's the trick
Mhm.
is you, if you're doing all work, you're going to get wore out.
Mhm.
But if you
Right.
can bring people along and they can understand where they fit and how it
Mhm.
all works together, now you've got something that's magical that
Mhm.
will grow, make you a lot of money, and it won't wear you out in the process.
Right. And as I was reading your book and reading about the various parts of the bicycle, several things struck me. The first was that you can be totally on your own and use this analogy,
Right.
because all of the pieces are very important pieces. And if you don't have all of those pieces, your bike isn't going to work. You
It's
know,
not going to be a fun
um,
ride.
right, right. You might go in circles, you might not go at all.
Right.
You might crash, depending on, maybe you don't
Yep.
have brakes. But it also was in many ways very simple. As you said, we all know how a bike works. It's if you'd said, hey, it's like a car, everybody would have just totally glazed over and gone,
Right.
yeah, because cars, let's be honest, are very, very
Right.
complicated.
You lift the hood and it looks
Right.
really difficult.
Yeah,
Complicated.
and it's computerized and and all of this. But a bike, we know how to, we've all been riding bikes since we were 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
Now, we might not have ridden them since we were 4 or 5, but we all know how they work. So let's walk through the parts. Let's start at the top. What do the handlebars stand for?
Yeah. The handlebars, Deb, are, it's how we steer a bike,
Mhm.
obviously. But, and honestly, it's the way we steer business. But
Mhm.
here's what I find, right? When we were kids riding a bike, how
Mhm.
did we want to ride our bike?
Fast.
With our hands in the
Oh,
air,
yeah, this is true. We did the
right?
balancing thing.
Right. If you could ride your bike with your hands in
Mhm.
the air, you were part of the cool kid gang.
Uh-huh.
And that's unfortunately how many business
Mhm.
owners run their business
Right.
today.
Right.
Rather than putting their hands on the
Mhm.
handlebars and steering their business where they want to go,
Mhm.
they don't. They have their hands off the handlebars.
Mhm.
So where does it go? Who knows?
Right.
So the question is, how do you steer a business?
Mhm.
Right? So you steer a business using a vision. You have to
Mhm.
have a vision that
Mhm.
says, I want this business in 5 years to look like this.
Mhm.
Here's my dream
Right.
in Technicolor.
Mhm.
I want it to be here. The second thing we have to do is we have to have a purpose or a mission that our business is going to support,
Mhm.
so that other people will say, wow, I like that cause and
Mhm.
I'm going to come alongside you. So we need a vision, we
Mhm.
need a purpose. And then the third thing we need is what I call strong leadership.
Mhm.
And that is, we have to know the standards
Mhm.
and the expectations that we're going to have. Some people call it culture.
Mhm.
The culture we're going to create, because we want people when they come into our business to know how to behave
Right.
and know what our expectations are.
Mhm.
So if we do those three things, we can steer our business just
Mhm.
like we steer a bike.
Right. And when we've got our hands off, trying to balance, one tiny little pebble really can send us
Right.
just off in the wrong direction. And to me, that's, it's the people that are, ooh, squirrel. Let's do, or, all those various things. We can get sidetracked. And of
Easily.
course, part of the reason why we might be an entrepreneur, why we might be a small business owner, is to have that freedom to think, oh, let's try
Yes.
this, let's do. But of course, there's ways to do it that are structured. It's doing your research. It's making sure you can even do that. I mean, you mentioned that you came up with this at the door manufacturing. You weren't all of a sudden going to say, well, let's build stairs.
Right.
No, it might take a lot of the same skills, a lot of the same manufacturing capability, but you still needed to do your research to make sure that you could even do it.
No, you're absolutely right, Deb. I think I'm trying to think of the word, but it's kind of this conflicting thought
Mhm.
that we get into business for ourselves because we want the freedom and
Right.
flexibility to
Mhm.
do what we want.
Mhm.
Yet once we decide what we want to do, we have to bring discipline
Mhm.
and structure
Right.
to that.
Mhm.
Without it, then we are simply we're taking all the turns that we can see.
Mhm.
We're taking every turn that looks appealing and attractive in the moment,
Mhm.
and it's likely never going to take us to the destination that we really
Right.
ultimately had in mind in the beginning.
Mhm. Right. You know,
So there is
and
this thought, though
yeah,
you have to balance the two.
right. You know, and we've all known people like that, and we might have been people like that, um,
Absolutely.
where, say you go to a networking thing, and every time you see them, they're doing something different.
Yes.
Now sometimes that's practical. There's a reason for it, all those various things. But in many cases, it really was the bright, shiny object syndrome. I'm going to do this.
Right.
Ooh, that looks better. Ooh, that looks better. That looks better. And they really do, just kind of veer off every which direction.
Right. Yeah. It's one of the main difficulties of running a business is
Hmm.
staying on course.
Hmm. Right.
And the way to stay on course is to paint the picture that's
Hmm.
so compelling, so attractive, so
Hmm.
desirable that it makes you want to just continue struggling
Right.
through, even if you're in the muck.
Hmm. Right. Right. You're just going to have to pedal harder, pedal faster, all those various things. We'll talk about those other parts later,
Right.
but yeah, it is about staying that course,
Right.
even when it's boring, when it's hard, when it's difficult. It's about staying and going in that same direction.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So next is the frame. Now, the frame really is, and it's funny because there's none of the parts are more important than any other part. You have to have them
Right.
all, but of course you can't have any of it if you don't have the frame. So explain the frame.
No, you're right, Deb. But you're a wizard. I'm hiring you for
Now I read your book.
you're going to
I
come
read
on
your
my
book.
team. I can see it now. No, you're right. The frame is the central part,
Mhm.
and it is no more important than the others, but it's critically
Mhm.
important. And the frame is what everything attaches to on a
Mhm.
bike, and it's got to be solid and firm.
Mhm.
So we got to ask ourselves, okay, what is that we want in our business to be the structure, the frame?
Mhm.
And the reality is, I believe it's three things. I believe we have to have an organizational structure.
Mhm.
Some call it an org chart
Mhm.
that defines how everyone connects to one another,
Right.
who reports to who, who
Mhm.
who is related to who. And and Deb, I'll tell you that most entrepreneurs, most small business owners, if they've ever been in a corporate setting, they throw out this idea because they see it as being part of the
Oh,
bureaucracy.
it's restrictive.
And the reality is the one thing that I think most business owners don't realize is that most people on their team, without the benefit of seeing an organizational chart,
Mhm.
they don't see that there's another opportunity for them. The
Right.
job they're in is the only one they
Mhm.
see, because they see a boss and then they see themselves and maybe two or three other people, and that's it.
Mhm.
So what I always tell people on the structure is draw an organization chart for the business you want to have in 3 years.
Mm.
So make it in the
Mhm.
future.
Mhm.
That'll have more boxes on it than you have today.
Mhm.
Make it by function, not by person. In other words, if there's one person, you still have 7 boxes.
Right.
It's do it by function, because
Mhm.
that's why most business owners are so tired,
Mhm.
because they're sitting in 7 different boxes, but
Right.
they only reflect it as one.
Mhm.
Reflect it as 7,
Mhm.
draw it for 3 years in the future, and only put one person in each box. No
Mm.
two people in the same box,
Mhm.
except in the owner box. It's the only
Mhm.
place where it can happen.
Mhm.
But we have to have an organizational chart.
Mhm.
We have to have job
Mhm.
responsibilities. I call them position agreements.
Right.
And that is, people need to know what they're responsible for,
Mhm.
how they're going to get measured, and what behaviors we expect
Mhm.
from them. And then the third thing we need is we need an accountability system,
Right.
a way to keep people accountable for the things,
Mhm.
so that they can take ownership for the things they
Mhm.
said they would do. If
Right.
we put those three things together in our business, our frame will be tight,
Mhm.
it'll be firm, everything will attach solidly, and it'll be able to go fast.
Right. And again, even if it's just you, you can have, and,
Right.
and you should have those boxes to know what goes there, because part of that is, how much time is going to be spent there. I love that you call it a position agreement as opposed to a job description, because to me, position agreement is, it's both ways.
Right.
You have an agreement with yourself, with another person that this is
Right.
what's going to happen, as opposed to just here is what you will do.
Yeah.
So the agreement is what makes that truly functional.
You're absolutely right. It's central to the idea.
Right.
Everybody, again, it's one of those things that's kind of an oxymoron. We think that most people want freedom and flexibility. The reality is most people want to know exactly what's expected of us. And they want to know how we're going to be measured. Because those that are A players like to have a scorecard. They like to be measured. They like to compete. And so, and if somebody rejects the idea of having a measurement, well, then you're probably dealing with somebody who's not necessarily your top flight person.
Right.
So it really helps you identify your team.
Well, and it's so important because, even if you are the type of person who likes freedom, who likes flexibility, there are still certain things that have to be done. And maybe freedom is part of the thing. And so you say, you have the ability to do this. We encourage you to be thinking outside the box, to propose other solutions, things like that. But we need that structure. It's kind of like, if you have a little child and you say, go clean your room, and that's all you say. They're going to go in, and their definition of a clean room is almost always very different than mom's definition.
Exactly.
And then everybody gets upset because nobody's goals, nobody's expectations were met. Well, it was because you didn't start there. And so if you tell them, okay, well, the clean room means no toys on the floor, everything is picked up. See if you can come up with a different way to store things. So that gives them the flexibility.
Right.
But you're still doing that. And then, as you said, you give them a time frame. Okay, this needs to be done by tomorrow. This needs to be done in 3 hours. And if you get it done in less time and it's acceptable, you can have ice cream. Because we all like the
There's a
fun perks.
reward tied to it. Sure. Right. It's it's simple. When you start to talk it through the way you're doing it, Deb, everybody that's listening, I'm sure, is going, well, yeah, duh.
Right.
That's right. But somehow when we get ourselves in business mode, we either get too busy with the day-to-day things, or we just forget that these are fundamental truths that we learned when we were kids. We learned them back when we were learning how to balance and ride a bike.
Right.
But we've kind of forgotten them along the way, and we're doing it in the, under the guise of I'm my own boss.
Right.
And, frankly, I'd rather be humbled a little bit as a boss and be successful as a business.
Right.
Right.
And if it was total freedom, nothing would get done. I mean,
Exactly right.
even
We'd
if
have
it's
anarchy.
just you, if that comes back to the bright, shiny object thing.
Exactly.
So we've got the frame, we've got the handlebars. Now, of course, there's those two things on either end. And I love this. So talk to us about first the front wheel.
Yeah. So Deb, I tell people that, on a bike, there are two places where the rubber meets the road. Truly. And in business, there are two places where the rubber literally meets the road. The front wheel of the bike, it represents in business our ability to win new customers.
Okay.
So it's essentially our marketing, sales side of our business, the front end of our business. Most people call it the front wheel, the front end. In a bike, it's truly the case. It's made up of three components. The hub at the center is the definition of our ideal customer. The spokes are our marketing strategies, of which we need to have more than one or two.
It can't just be, I'm going to be on social media.
Right. Yeah. So if I have social media and I go to a chamber meeting every now and then, and I'm going to use those, I'm never going to get enough leads to really keep the business moving. So I have to have 6 or 7 solid spokes, solid strategies to generate new leads. And then the tire represents our sales process, our step-by-step process to take somebody from not knowing us to getting comfortable enough to pull out their wallet, give us their credit card, and make an order.
Right.
Right.
And let's break them down a little bit more, because I love, the hub concept, because it's the definition of your customer. And we've talked about this on the program before, that, if you say, who's your customer, and your answer is everyone.
Right.
No, 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 no.
Right.
We all have the perfect customer in mind.
Yes.
Sex, age, income, need. I mean, clearly we're filling a need, or they're not going to buy something from us. All these various things. And are there other people? Sure. But we have that perfect customer in mind. And that really is that avatar. I've talked before about, have a picture of that person on your computer, all these various places, so that you're always talking to that person.
No, Deb, you are one brilliant lady. I can tell you this.
Oh, I try.
No, here's the reality, right? You are so spot on. And I tell people, look, you put a chair at the front of the room, and you put your ideal customer in that chair. And most people that know me know that I put my dad in the chair because I know what my dad felt. I know what my dad was worried about. I know what his dreams were. I know what kept him up at night. I knew what frustrated him. I knew everything about him. So all I have to do is think of my dad. And every time I think of something about that, those thoughts become my marketing message. Right there. It's all I have to do is get inside my dad's head. And then if I talk like that in my marketing messages or in the material side, or when I stand up and speak to somebody, the ideal customer who has those same thoughts going on in their head are the ones who are going to come talk to me. And they're the ones. Everybody may be a business owner. They're not all not all business owners are my ideal customer. Those that remind me of my dad are my ideal.
Right. And it's the traits that they have, so it's not that it's, a man who is X age, all of those things. It's the searching for answers, thinks he can
what's
do it
in their
all.
head, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
all of those various things. And I think that sometimes is where people get caught up in, creating their perfect customer too, is we give, I mentioned, you put a picture on your screen. Okay, well, that does limit us. If I really am looking for a woman who is 40 years old, who has X income, maybe, but it's more the personality of her is what we're looking for.
Yes. Demographics are important and we need to know those.
Right.
But it's really more the psychographics or what, the way I think, the way I'm feeling, right? If I can tap in, we know that selling is 80% feeling, 20% logic. We know that. So we've got to tap into the feelings of those people who are our ideal prospects. If we can do that well, then the business can grow like never before.
Right. And it doesn't matter the sex, the age, some of those other things, because you touch them here, which then of course touches them here. And so that's the important part. And so, as much as we talk about developing that avatar, don't get caught up in this is who this person looks like. Because aside from anything else, you mentioned a chamber meeting, maybe you walk right past the perfect client because you saw that avatar there, and so, that's the key is, what are they feeling? What is that psycho that's going on there?
Exactly.
Now, I love the spokes as being the marketing strategies. And part of why I really like that is they all have to be pretty close to the same size. You can't have one that is really long or really short because they're not going to connect to the wheel right. And so you can't rely, say, 90% on your Facebook page or, 50% on direct mail. You've got to break it up. And again, that's because people read things differently. They learn differently. They absorb differently. And so you have to have all those different areas that you're reaching them.
No, I agree with you. I think it's got to be balanced and I think you have to be measured. So I think you do have to take some discipline in that. And I think about it oftentimes that if I was in a workout routine,
Mhm.
I wouldn't just build my left
Right.
muscle
Mhm.
and let my right one atrophy.
Mhm.
I'd want to build them both up the
Right.
same way. So
Mhm.
I have to do that. I have to be balanced, but I
Mhm.
also need multiple approaches because
Mhm.
not everybody's going to respond to the same way.
Mhm.
If I have 6 to 7, then I know that if I can really measure and monitor them,
Mhm.
I'll have a steady flow of leads.
Mhm.
And that's all I need.
Right.
Because then if I can put them into a very deliberate and intentional step-by-step
Mhm.
process to to get them to help them make a good buying decision,
Mhm.
now my business is golden.
Right. And obviously we're not saying that they're exactly the same, that
Sure.
you spend X number of hours or X number of dollars. I mean, well, we get the point though, that we have to have multiple ways to reach people.
Yep.
Way back when I got my marketing degree, I remember they said, you had to see something 7 times before you even really paid attention to it. And, that was before the internet was invented. And all these various things. And now I don't know how many times we
Oh,
need to see it, hear
right.
it, all those various things. And again, think of, where they're going to be reached. I always tell people it's kind of like the advertising for furniture in the newspaper. I flip right past that until I need furniture. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I know that the newspaper is going to have ads for that. So I better go in
Right.
and look that up.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So
Yeah,
good.
it's a complicated time.
It
It's
is.
difficult to get people's attention. There's
Mhm.
a lot of
Mhm.
distraction.
Right.
So the more strategies we have,
Mhm.
the more likely we are to
Mhm.
get the attention of somebody will say, I've heard that. I've seen that
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, let me check it out.
Right. Well, and of course, when you have just one or two, then you really, well, first of all, you're missing everybody who's not looking at those one or two things. But, you're also running a risk of things changing. I always
Right.
cringe when I go somewhere and I have a business owner who tells me, I don't have a website because I have a Facebook page.
Right.
That's great. As long as Facebook doesn't change it in the slightest.
Right. Right. Right.
And of course we all know Facebook changes
Right.
things for a variety of reasons, good and bad, all those various things. But yeah, I mean, you might log into your Facebook business page tomorrow. It looks totally different. It's gone.
Right.
All
Right.
these various things. And so if you put all your eggs in that basket, see, we just have so many metaphors.
It's a risky
Um,
thing to do. You're right.
yeah, yeah, is it tempting? Sure. I mean, look at the companies that spend millions of dollars on the one commercial during the Super Bowl.
Right. Right.
Maybe you caught people's attention, maybe you didn't. But yeah, that one always baffles me.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
I'm
Okay,
with you
so
on that.
then we've got the tire. We've got the actual rubber part. So what does that stand for?
Well, that's Deb. That is on the front wheel. The tire is I consider it the step-by-step process that you use in your selling process.
Okay.
And the reason I define it that way is, again, if I see what most business owners do,
Mhm.
most business owners they either do the selling themselves and they
Mhm.
do it just because they've been doing it for years and
Right.
they do it in it's not written down.
Mhm.
It's all just
Mhm.
it's just natural,
Mhm.
or they hire what they consider to be a really good natural salesperson.
Mhm.
And what happens is if we don't document and script out what really goes on,
Mhm.
when that salesperson leaves,
Mhm.
they take all their knowledge and
Right.
wisdom. What we want to do as a business is build our business around processes
Mhm.
and systems,
Mhm.
not around individual people,
Right.
because we want to have something that I could replace. You could replace me with somebody else,
Mhm.
and that next person would be able to come in and do the function
Mhm.
as well as I did it.
Right.
That's when we know we have something.
Mhm. And you talk in your book about having those scripts. And again, we're not saying that you're reading it word for word, but
Right.
it's kind of that process that's written down because yeah, things happen to people, heaven forbid they want to go on vacation.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and all these various things. And it doesn't matter if it is the person who is dealing directly with the customer, it's everything. It's, what do you do when you go through here? I mentioned my producer. We have steps that go
Sure.
for every single thing. You do this, then you do this. Now, are there variations? Yes, because things happen. But, we had that. And that was how I initially started working with her. I said, here's the email that I send to someone who is going to be a guest. Personalize it the way you would write it.
Right.
But, this and this and this really need to be in there. Everything else, and so what she has done, of course, is tweaked it. We've been working together almost 3 years. And so now she's like, this question always gets asked. So it needs to be in there. And even things like this is bold, this is red, this is, all those, you got
Right.
those emails, but if I ever lose her, I'll be crushed. But, because of what she has done, it is something that someone else could do.
Exactly.
Right.
And, I just real quickly, Deb, I always tell people that if we just think back to our favorite movie,
Mhm.
if we think about our favorite movie, the lead actor or actress in our favorite movie, they weren't ad-libbing.
No,
They
they
were
followed a
following a script. They
Mhm.
practiced 100 times
Mhm.
before they actually did it on camera.
Mhm.
But the reason it's so good is because they're so well rehearsed and
Right.
well practiced
Mhm.
that they can give it not as a rote, I'm reading your script.
Mhm.
They have to own it. And
Mhm.
that's what we need in business.
Right, right. And we know when they've gone off script, and sometimes those are funny. We like things like
Right?
that. And it is good, as we mentioned, to put their own personality in it. But we can really tell when somebody's just totally making it up as they go.
Right. We can't all be Robin Williams.
Right,
Right.
right.
It's not going to happen.
Right. So then we've got the back wheel, and so talk to us about the back wheel, because of course it is just as important as that front wheel.
It's the second element, the second critical place where the rubber meets the road. And the
Mhm.
back wheel is our ability to serve our customers.
Mhm.
The way I say it, it's to deliver on the promise that we made on the front wheel of the bike. So
Mhm.
we make a promise on the front in our
Mhm.
sales and marketing conversation,
Mhm.
and then we have to deliver.
Right.
So the back end is our systems, our
Mhm.
processes, our activities to actually fulfill the
Mhm.
product or
Right.
service
It kind of
commitment.
pushes it along.
Yes. And so if you notice on the back wheel of a bike, it's got gears
Mhm.
because we have to be able to, the back end's got to be efficient, whether we're going at a very
Mhm.
high speed or if we're going at a very low speed.
Mhm.
It's got to be efficient. And
Mhm.
that's got to happen in our business as well. We've got to be able to be efficient, even if it's the peak of our season or if it's the slow time of our
Mhm.
year.
Right. And I love that you mentioned gears, because with gears, you're able to be flexible.
Yes.
You can make that wheel spin faster. You can make that wheel spin slower because of those gears.
Right. Because if we pumped out the same number of bagels every day, regardless of how many
Mhm.
customers came in, we'd have a lot of wasted bagels.
Mhm.
Or we'd have a lot of days where we couldn't satisfy
Right.
the bagel demand.
Mhm.
So we've got to be able to change the production
Mhm.
um, frequency and scale simply
Mhm.
without losing efficiency.
Right.
So that's why the back wheel's so
Mhm.
critical. And oh,
Mhm.
by the way, Deb, here's one interesting thing. Just like on a bike,
Mhm.
both the front and back wheel have to go at the same speed.
Mhm.
In our
This is true.
business,
Mhm.
they have to go at the same speed
Mhm.
as well. If they
Mhm.
don't, we're going to crash one
Mhm.
way or the other.
Right. And again, they need to be about the same size.
Right. Right. Yeah, we're not riding a unicycle here, nor
No.
are we riding one of those clown bikes with has
Mhm.
a really, really small
Uh,
front wheel and a really, really big
mhm.
back wheel,
Mhm. Right.
right? We're riding a business that
Mhm.
that brings in customers sufficiently and we can fulfill their
Mhm.
needs and we can go faster as we go
Right. Right. Or, as you mentioned, slow it down.
or slow it down if
Mhm.
we need to.
Right.
Right.
So speaking of slowing down, what about the brakes? What do the brakes do?
Well, the brakes are, as you know, how you control the speed on both your front and back wheel. There
Mhm.
are two brakes on a bike. One controls the front, one
Mhm.
controls the back. In our business, our brakes are our financial controls.
Mm.
So we need to make sure that we know, because we're going to pull the brake if we don't see something right in our financials. And here's what, unfortunately, most small business owners use their bank account as their only financial control.
Right.
If there's money in the bank account, I'll spend it. If there's not, I won't. We've got to use 4 documents: a P&L, profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow forecast, and a budget.
Right.
And if we don't have those 4 as business owners, we're really not playing business the right way. We're just goofing around. We've got a hobby. But if we've got a true business, we will be looking at those 4 every month in a timely manner so we can make adjustments based on how well the business is doing.
Right. You know, and as you mentioned, it's important to make adjustments. You know, you might know that you've got, say, a big trade show coming up. And so there's going to be a lot of expenses, but further on down the road, hopefully you've got a lot of income. You know, and so you're looking at that. And I think the problem with, as you said, with many small business owners, it's, do I have enough in the bank to do this? Or, you know, do I have a credit card where I can put this on there?
Right.
You know, and so, you know, they just kind of, and I mean, it's that way, you know, how many people, you know, and the number is very high, live paycheck to paycheck.
Sure.
You know, and I mean, that's just a fact of life. But the more we budget, the more we look at all of that, the better things will be.
Right. We're, you know, this is, you know, we're at the time of year where we ought to be making our plan for next year.
Right. Right.
And now and part of that ought to include a financial plan. How are we going to spend our money, and what's our expectation for revenue generation?
Right.
And that needs to tie out. If it doesn't tie out, we know we have a train wreck ahead of us. We've got to solve that before we get there.
Right. And it's important that it's actually written down and not just in here. And again, whether you've got a, you know, a multi-million-dollar business or you're working in your basement, write it down, you know, make it real.
That's absolutely right. You know, they say 85% of the world's wealth lives with those who have written plans.
Right.
So I don't want to try to beat the odds on that one. I'm going to go with being part of the 85%.
Right. Definitely. So then good bikes have gauges and indicators. You know, now some of them have really fancy ones and some of them just have some that are pretty basic. But what are those indicators telling us?
Yeah, the indicators on a bike, obviously, you know, when I ride mine, they tell me my heart rate, my cadence, my pace, how I'm consuming fuel. In a business, our indicators are what I call our key performance indicators. You've probably heard the term KPIs or key performance indicators. The way I think about it is the financial controls are looking in our rearview mirror.
Right.
That's looking at what we did last month. I want to have something that helps me predict the road ahead. So I need some indicators that will help me predict the future. Things like, how many leads am I generating? What's my close ratio? What's my average ticket sale? You know, there's a whole bunch of things, my conversion rate. I mean, there's a whole bunch of numbers and indicators that can tell me whether I'm gaining speed or whether I'm coming into a slowing season.
Right.
And those are the indicators. So everyone needs to have a dashboard. And our dashboard doesn't, you know, if you're flying an F-16, you got to have a fairly complicated dashboard, right? But we don't want to act like we're riding a tricycle. We don't need any. We need something in between. We need 5 or 6 indicators that are going to tell us the health of our business and what we need to pay attention to most.
Right. You know, and it's important that we're looking at those because again, it is telling us what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
You know, and now of course the one thing that it doesn't have that a car would have is a gas gauge, but that's kind of our internal thing, you know, and you talk in your book about energy and things like that. But, you know, it is very important. You know, do you have the energy, the passion, you know, to do all of that? And, you know, and it's also, you know, do you have the right team around you? You know, we talked about at the start, you know, do you have what it's going to take?
No, that's right. And so since we're there, let's just talk about the team real quick.
Okay.
Because we'll finish this out. We've talked about most of the components of the bike, but the reality is we have to have all those in place.
Right.
The way I think about it, we have to have those in place before we get somebody on the team to ride the bike, but our team members sit on our seat.
Right.
And so we have to make sure the seat is properly positioned because we all know how uncomfortable it is to ride a bike when the seat's in the wrong spot.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's not comfortable at all. In fact, sometimes painful. Well, sometimes it's painful for our employees to be on our team. So we have to adjust the seat. Well, here's how we do it. We have to have a good hiring strategy. We have to have a solid onboarding program. We have to have a good compensation program, good reward systems, an incentive plan, a communication scheme. All of these are adjustments to the seat placement so that by the time we get all these made, somebody gets on there and they say, this bike was perfectly made for me and I can pedal really hard.
Right.
Because it's a great fit.
Right. And those can vary even by person. I mean, now if you've got hundreds of employees, you really don't want to get too carried away with doing something like that. But at the same point, it is something to look at. For someone, their salary is utmost, and we're not going to get into the discussion of millennials versus boomers versus all that. But, for someone else, being able to be home in the afternoon when their kids are home, that's what's most critical to them, and so how flexible can you be? Now we're not talking about, I hate to say it, reinventing the wheel every time, but it is about, how can you make things, as adaptable as you can, and because you do want long-term employees. When everybody, we've all heard the stats that, if you have to replace an employee, it costs more and, and all of those things. So do what you can to keep them happy while you've got them. And as you mentioned, bring them on right to start with. I think one of the big things that so many people get caught up in is they hire the wrong people at the very start. And then it's, oh my gosh, what do we do with them?
Right. All the adjustments of the seat influence and impact your culture. So they all need to be in alignment or consistent with what we did in the beginning when we started steering. This kind of brings it full circle. They've got to be consistent with the kind of culture we want to maintain. Right. And the reality is, you've said it right, Deb, most of the issues start and occur at the very beginning when we hire people.
Right.
And if we don't have a robust hiring process, and if we don't have a detailed onboarding process so we can get people up to speed quickly or find out if they're going to work quickly, then it's going to slow our bike down. And so we've got to pay particular attention to that. And oh, by the way, here's a tip. Most people write their job postings based on skill requirements.
Yes, you need to be able to do this and this and this and this.
Right. Here's everything you got to do. I've never seen somebody not work in a job because of the skill. It's always because of the behaviors.
Right.
They don't show up. They're not a good team player. They're not honest. They don't have integrity, whatever it might be. It's always the behaviors. So rather than starting with skill, start with behaviors when you're doing your hiring.
Right.
And get the people with the right behaviors. If you have the right behaviors, we'll teach you how to do the job.
Right.
We'll teach you the skill. And if you do that, your bike's going to go far faster.
Right. That gets tricky because those kind of soft skill type of things, there's various laws, and things like that, but still it is that expectation that you're setting up. So, and we've all, we've taken Myers-Briggs, we've done, all those various things, and that ties into that. Now, are people giving the answers that they think you want to hear? Sure. We've all done that. Right. But it is, it is part of that hiring process. And you shouldn't just be thinking, oh my gosh, I need somebody just through December, because, even if you're just hiring a temporary, a seasonal employee, something like that, you hire the wrong person and it can just be total disaster.
You're gonna spend more time trying to sort that out than you would had you even spent a little bit more to get the right person on the team.
Right. and sometimes that's back to teamwork. I mean, so as in more than one person interviews, and there's certainly, a lot of ways to do that are good ways. I did one time that was absolutely horrible. I did an interview, and there were 10 people, and they just question. Oh, it was hideous. I hated it.
Gosh.
And more importantly, I was not allowed to ask any questions.
Wow.
And I was told when I said, "Excuse me, I have some questions. If you come back, you'll be allowed to ask questions then."
Wow.
And of course, I thought, ain't coming back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow.
But that goes to show how that initial way you're doing things says it all.
Matters.
And even just, how is somebody greeted at the door? All those
Right.
various things.
Yes, absolutely. Critical.
Right. Well, what I love about this, Rich, is that you were so successful with this bicycle analogy at a company that made doors. and we're not disparaging anything, but we mentioned the fact that,
Right.
people had this, they did this part. This was their, they cut the hole out for the door handle, whatever. But because you got them all bought into this, it made the company so much more successful. And I just love that, because we all tend to think, well, sure, you could do that at, at this big fancy company. No, any company it's going to work with.
No, it is. And look, in the end, the goal we have, Deb, is for our team to understand
Mhm.
why we're doing
Mhm.
all these strategies
Right.
in our business.
Mhm.
We talk a lot about business strategy, and to most people it goes right over their head, or they
Mhm.
say, or their thought is, these guys are just wasting time. Why don't
Right.
they come out and do
It
some
doesn't
real work?
pertain to me.
Right. So
Mhm.
this just helps them understand that, look, we just want to make all these
Right.
parts fit better
Mhm.
together,
Mhm.
and let's make it go. And oh, by the way, if one of our reward systems or incentive programs is that they get a share in the growth of the business through some profit share or
Right.
some kind of gain
Ooh.
share,
Mhm.
they will work
Mhm.
incredibly hard
Right.
to be a part of that.
Mhm. Right. And you never want them thinking, well, I just do X.
Right.
I'm just in the mailroom. I just do this.
That's
That might be what they're doing right then. And it might be the only thing they want to do. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But it's one of the things that drives me nuts is if somebody tells me I'm just a housewife, or
Right.
worse, I'm just
Right.
a mother or just a father. No, you're never just
Stop.
in anything.
Right.
And so we want them to really think, okay, that might be what I do is this little box, but this little box, if it's not done right, nothing else will work.
It impacts everything.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what I do has as much of an impact.
Mhm.
A lot of people say this, right? The salespeople get a lot of attention because they're out talking with the customer.
Mhm.
But the person who's in the back in the shipping
Mhm.
department, they're just as important as
Oh
the
yeah.
salesperson.
Yeah. If they don't put the right label on that
Right.
box, doesn't matter how good your sales department is.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and I think that's, that goes along with the incentive and the gratitude and the appreciation.
Yes.
Let the people that do something like, just putting the label on the box, let them know just how critical they are.
Right. Absolutely. You've hit it spot on.
Well, see, it's because it's such a good book.
My
And
goodness.
Rich,
I'm going to have to read this book you're talking
I
about.
know this is such a good book. You're just going to have to get it. And so tell people where they can get it. And
You can get the book anywhere. The book looks
Mhm.
like this. It's called The Ultimate Business Tune-Up. And it's written, it's my legacy to my dad. It
Mhm.
tells my dad's story.
Mhm.
It talks about the things my dad did really well and what he
Mhm.
didn't do. But then I follow that with
Mhm.
principles and things that
Right.
can help people be successful and
Mhm.
avoid the pitfalls
Mhm.
my dad endured.
Right.
But you can get it on, you can find it on my website. You can find it on most major outlets.
Mhm.
Um, there's, in fact, Deb, I did put together a specific web page for
Ah,
your listeners.
cool. Ready with my pen.
Okay. So it's easy. My website name is Tour de Profit, one word like Tour de France,
Mhm.
tourtoprofit.com. And if you do /business power hour,
Mm-hmm.
I put some resources on there. And one of the
Cool.
resources I put on was an e version of this book
Oh,
that
wonderful.
I'll send you for free.
Great. Perfect.
So
You know,
if you want
and
that, just go there.
it's a great book. It's a fairly quick read. You know, but you know, the important thing is there are homework assignments that you need to be doing as you're going through it. I mentioned one of the things that I really like about it is you list a lot of other resources, you know, and we tend to think, oh, I don't have time. Make the time. You know,
There are a lot of people
yeah.
that have written some
Mhm.
great research and books
Right.
that I lean on heavily.
Right. You know, and if we had the time, we'd go back to school. We'd do all of these things, you know, read about it and, you know, and absorb it that way. You know,
Right.
it's great information. So again, Rich, tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
Well, you can find me. The best way to go is to my website.
Okay.
It's called Tour de Profit, like Tour de France, TOURDEPROFIT.com.
Mm-hmm.
So tourtoprofit.com. You can find me there. There are links to my Facebook page. I'd love to connect. I've got a lot of free resources there. If you go to the Business Power Hour page, there I put some free things on there so you can access them right away. Would
Okay.
love to just share and help you be as successful as possible in your business.
Cool. I love it. You know, and it really, you know, it folks, as we've been saying, it is a simple process, but it's something that you should take the time to do, you know, and I shouldn't say should take the time to do. You must take the time to do it. Whether it's just you, whether you have 100, 1,000, 100,000 employees, go through these steps because they really are important to be able to look through it and see, you know what, this is something that we need to be doing. Your business might be very successful. Maybe you want it to be even more successful.
Right. We can all get better.
Mhm.
Nobody's at the finish line yet. We're all still working to get there. So, you know, just if there's some tips, I know there are some tips in there that you could just tune it up a little bit, right? It's the 1 to 2 degree turns that really make a difference for most of us.
And that's the key. You know, it's just, oh, I could do this a little bit different and holy cow, look at the difference it makes.
Yeah, look at what could happen.
Yeah. You know, and so we're not telling people start over. No, you know, that's not it. It's just what are the little tune-up things that you can do? Think of it as, you know, your bike, your car, your body. You know, you
Right.
tune it up just a little bit and it makes such a big difference.
Yep, you're right.
Well, I have been having an absolutely wonderful time talking with Rich. We'll have to do it again because, you know, I still have questions on here, you know, that we didn't even get
I'm
to.
sure you do.
I'm just happy we got all the way through the bike. You know, we weren't leaving people without a seat or without.
No, you did
without
well.
something.
You are spot on.
Well, it's, you know, it's great that, you know, how you laid this out and, you know, I really do look forward to talking with you again. But
Sure.
until then, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having an absolutely wonderful time talking with Rich Allen. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.